Everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. I got three questions. Going to jump right in. What is the difference between a religion and a spirituality? I hear that all the time. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And really, a religion, it's more of a numbers game. A religion is a group of people who are influencing each other to improve themselves and to interact with what they regard as divinity. So that means that there has to be some semblance of rules, of hierarchy, of at least something on par with any other what we would call civilized structure, you know. Whereas spirituality is purely individual. It's an individual wanting to interact with the divine to empower themselves. The chief differences when you look at those two setups is one, how devoted is the individual in that instance? And two, can they achieve what they're after alone? This is why I'm a little annoyed when I hear people boast about that they're not religious but they're spiritual. Well, I mean, it's kind of like on par with the apocalypse question I got not too long ago. Would you be a lone wolf in that kind of situation? No, because I understand that I couldn't do everything alone. Well, similarly, the only people who really have any right to say that they're spiritual without being religious are mystics, people who are absolutely devoted to the idea of elevating themselves spiritually. And there are absolutely people like that. It's just most of the time when someone says, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, what they really mean is, I am such an individualist, I have been so tainted by modernity and the Kali Yuga and all this stuff that the media told me that I was special and unique and I didn't need any help bettering myself, that I'm not going to pursue any kind of structure. And another reason why when people hear the word religion, they associate it with a massive hierarchical structure, like, for example, the Roman Catholic Church. When, no, if you got three flipping shamans living in some rainforest somewhere and they have rules like, don't crap in the kitchen hut, boom, immediately that's not spirituality anymore. Now that's religion. This fixation with individuality to the point of self-destruction is not inherently healthy. And I know that's not what you were asking, and I know I'm going on a soapbox, but really that's the difference between a religion and spirituality is religions have groups, which means they have interactions, which means they have rules, which means they have hierarchies. And the same thing goes with anything. I mean, what's the difference between an individual on the road selling essential oils that they made themselves versus a legitimate structured business with, like people clocking in and actually observing regulations that have been created via an hierarchy, via like a CEO and then a CFO and then a CMO, and then it goes all the way down to basic employees. The difference between a business and an individual is very similar. It's the difference between a religion and a spirituality. I hope that answers that. But yeah, I mean, rules exist for a reason. Not everybody wants to fast in the middle of the woods or on a mountaintop in order to commune with the divine, and that's why religion is more common than spirituality, and this is a judgmental statement, but why most people, when I hear them say that they're not religious but they're very spiritual, what they really mean is they don't want to deal with rules. That's really what they mean. So yeah, and not trying to be mean about it. I mean, what's funny is it's also hypocritical because I fall into that latter camp of spiritual, but whatever. Okay, next question. Hang on, gotta pause it. Okay. I see a lot of people, this is the question, by the way, this isn't me talking. I see a lot of people espousing Hinduism in lieu of European paganism. By the way, I can read, you guys, I just don't read so good with glasses and with the really bright camera lights. Just in case anybody's wondering why, like every time I read these questions, I'm like, that's why. Anyway, sorry. I have noticed that people ascribe to Hinduism in lieu of European paganism while simultaneously saying they are pagan. Okay. Why is this? Okay, well, the big reason is a lot of the European pagan knowledge and understanding has been largely lost. And some people claim to have found it, and some people claim that it's impossible to find it, and some people are reading post-Christianized Europe literature as though it somehow draws that connection, and it's so obvious, especially when you read it. It's like, no, that's clearly a more modern concept. That's Christianity with Thor and Odin mixed in a bunch, and you see that a lot. One of the reasons why a lot of people who are reconnecting with Indo-European pagan roots, it's in the name, Indo. Uh, One of the things that they're doing is kind of like Jurassic Park when they used the frog DNA to sort of complete the DNA. They're using the Hindu models of monism and of bhakti, which is the adoration of a deity in order to elevate yourself to the divine. They're kind of using it as a trail of breadcrumbs back to their own history because it's the closest existing thing to European paganism, closest existing. To a lesser extent, it's kind of interesting. I rarely ever see people use Shinto for the same thing, and I realize that obviously they're further apart, but you would think it would be incorporated to some degree. I think it's actually a really good idea. In fact, our Halloween episode of the 13th Floor, we also talk about Oban, really worth analyzing if you're fascinated with Samhain and other European dead reverence festivals. Oban is a terrific way of looking into it. And interestingly, Oban is actually a Buddhist holiday. Like it originated with Buddhism, but the Shinto bled into it so much that in many respects, even though it originated under Buddhist guidelines, it's got so much Shintoism in it that it feels more like a Shinto holiday than a Buddhist one to me. Of course, that is from an outsider's perspective, but still. But yeah, that's the reason why you see so much Vedanta and other Hindu-based terminologies and spiritual practices sort of being incorporated into European pagan practices. Let's see. Next question, last one. Got to pause it again because I've got different files. Sorry about that. What do you think of entheogens? Okay, yeah, this one's going to be a lot more subjective, and this is just my opinion, and if your opinion differs from mine, I totally respect it, and I totally understand. The reason I bring that up is the dude, weed, Lamau crowd really gets knee-jerk defensive when you criticize them. They think you're trying to smack the bong right out of their hand. I am of the belief, I agree with Nietzsche on this, that there are two schools of spiritual thought. There is the Dianean school, the lunar school, which makes use of entheogens, and then there's the Apollonian school, the solar school, that does not. And I personally ascribe to the Apollonian school. I think that being stone cold sober is a better way to commune with divinity than being mixed up on stuff. And I totally get why people do it. I totally understand. In fact, in some ways, this is going to be a weird analogy, but it kind of reminds me of Pokemon. Like, if you start off with something that's really powerful at first, you can just keep using that continually. That's what the Dianean school does. Like, they people who are initiates, novices, they realize, hey, if I take this peyote, I'll talk directly with the divine, and they just keep doing that. On the flip side, the Apollonian school, it's more like catching a Magikarp and just grinding your way up to Gyarados. Day one, you got nothing. Day two, you got nothing. It takes months, years, decades of continuous practice with little to no results. But once you do attain that connection, in my opinion, subjective opinion, it is more powerful, it is more life-affirming, and it is deeper and stronger than what the Dianean school can come up with because they're using entheogens as a crutch to commune with the divine when the real answer lied within them the whole time. That's my opinion. That's why I'm averse to entheogens, not on ethical grounds, not on, oh, drugs are bad or anything like that, simply because I think that the lucid, sober, logical, rational path towards divinity is more rewarding ultimately than the easier way, which is using drugs to alter consciousness. You can alter consciousness without that. You can do all the things that all these people are telling you that you need DMT for. You can do that with water and air. You can do all that internally. Internal alchemy, another great example. That answers all three questions. Like, share, subscribe, and keep asking questions. Bye.